a great stand-up comedian is not just a great stand-up comedian. Doing stand-up teaches you how to be a writer, how to be a producer, how to be a star, and how to be a director every night.
Starting with Tom, how was it writing this special, Sledgehammer, for you?
I mean, it was a process. I dealt with everything that was going on with, like, my dad died and, kids growing up and just everything happening. We moved and my wife fell down the stairs. Everyone thought I shoved her down the stairs.
Gang, gang, dead daddies, gang, gang.
Oh, dead daddies?
Gang, gang,
yeah, absolutely.
gang, dead daddies, gang. We the gang.
Sam, what was it like writing Salute Me or Shoot Me for you?
This is my second special, so I felt, I guess, pressure to make sure it was as good as the first one, you know what I mean? I didn't want to hear, oh, it got worse, so I toured it like relentlessly.
Doing that many shows too is the move. You own it in a way that you can't own it if you do it like 40 times.
Yeah,
like,
that's
you just
what I
don't.
meant.
It's
I like married to it. You know what I
like
mean?
you command it, you own it.
Before I did God Loves Me, my mom had died, and so I was working on a really funny set about her dead ass. Because death is funny. And then I was watching the Oscars and the Will slapped Chris, and I was like, oh shit! I was like, yo! And when he slapped me so hard that everything in my life just went, and then I had this story to tell. And I was like, Ma, I love you, but we'll get to you later. And I put that off, and after I shot it, luckily, my dad died. And now I have a great set about my dead mom and my dead father. Can't wait for other people to die, yo.
Morbid Marlon is my favorite version of you so far.
Matt, what about you?
This was the first special I didn't have to self-produce, which was like a huge weight off my shoulders. I wasn't having to like set up chairs and stack chairs and check people in and COVID tests and all that shit. I was able to just show up and have fun. So to me, that's what I took away from it the most.
Hear one more person blame how their life is going on Mercury, I will kill you myself. Do you understand? You leave that planet alone.
Hot topic that gets talked about a lot. Comedy's dying. People are too sensitive.
No.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely not. Any comedian that is actually on the road or actually in these clubs or in these theaters, when it comes to the live audience, they're still laughing at everything they used to laugh at and then some. Even if it's a joke that is divisive, you still go, if I could just add a little bit more to this, I could bring everybody in.
And you know when it's at that point where it's not ready. You know when it's being divisive. You know when you're leaning too hard one way or the other. You know when it's imbalanced. And so when people do react that way, you're not like, what? Because you're like, I'm not telling the joke right yet.
Right. Right. And then sometimes that ooh is like, they're listening. Now how do I bring them in? Or maybe I just offend them and leave it at that because that's what I feel about it, and that's what I want you to feel.
But they're artistic choices, and I don't think people realize that a lot. It's like, it's not just like going willy-nilly haywire up there.
Sometimes you just want to be reckless too, just because like, you do that in real life. Like you say some shit to your friends or your family and they're like, that's fucked up. And then, like that's reality. You do that on stage too. You say things that are not like perfectly executed, but the outrage like that Marlon's talking about on like, it's not real. You go to the clubs and you see somebody go for the joke and you can't describe these pops. Like the audiences go nuts.
Yes.
They are looking for people to do these jokes. It's like there's two realities. And like some people believe that the reality online is the real, when you're like, that's not the real world, man.
No, it's not.
It's just not.
No, I think the subject matter all just comes down to intention. Like, what's your intention in saying some reckless shit right now? Are you trying to upset somebody, or are you trying to make light of a certain subject so that way it doesn't take up such a negative space in someone's mind, and they can laugh about something that may have brought them so much grief and discomfort? So I think if people can tell you're coming from a good place, I don't think
they
anything's
sense
off.
intent,
Yeah,
they
exactly.
totally do. That's why you can say some shit, and people are like, how'd you get away with that? It's like, because the audience knows who you are.
That's what we're here to do.
That's your identity. Sometimes the audience like when you're like, fuck you. You know what I mean? They're like,
sometimes you'll have an audience that doesn't have the energy, and then you check them on, and they go, that's all we really wanted.
Exactly.
To see if you were present, to see if you were reading.
If you're on the stage with us or you're just floating through here.
Exactly.
They could tell the difference.
I love a dark joke. I do. I love. Sometimes just watching people get scared. Sometimes I just had this one about changing my mom's diaper, and it was about my 83-year-old vagina and what I didn't want to see. And I just went into this whole thing of what I thought it would look like. And it's like a 7-minute bit. And they're just like, it gets crazier and crazier. I'm like waving the curtain like it's her vagina lips is the flag. And it was just crazy. And then at the end, I said I changed her diaper. Shh. And I was surprised to see, okay, Vi, somebody been doing her Kegels. And the audience was like, that one thing took the whole, oh my God, and brought everybody to laughter. Sometimes you do it on purpose and you can't be afraid to offend. That is number one in comedy. We can't give a fuck. Y'all can, but we can't.
When you're a young stand-up comic, right, you write all these jokes and you perform them. Every joke you tell, you give it your all. Like you put all your forthright and gusto into it and you wait to be loved by the audience. You wait for your response. You be like,
But how does that translate to specials and watching it on TV? Is there a difference?
There's no substitute for live. I mean, music live is incredible. Stand-up live, if you want to experience it, you got to go live. I think when a special translates, like when you're at home and you watch a special and you're laughing your ass off, that is like, that's another level. Because like it's different to watch it in your living room.
Which is why there's different formats and tones of these specials. Like sometimes you watch it for this extravagant production, right? You're like, this just looks incredible. Sometimes you want it to feel intimate, like you there, you in a grungy basement, you see all the pipes hanging down and shit, where you feel like you just there with them. I think it's just the tone in which you want to portray for the special that can really make or break it.
I did a few shows in the round, and I think for me, I'm usually like a pretty like static, like people are like, I didn't know you were alive, man. Like, I kind of like don't move. So for me, actually, the little bit of movement, you're walking during your setup and then maybe you stop for a punchline and then you kind of keep pacing, right? Because there's people all around you. That little bit of movement also keeps people like very engaged with you. It was different, but also that little bit of movement is like running to me. That's like sprinting on stage.
That's the fattest thing I've ever heard.
It's a very fat thing, but it's also very true. Traditionally, if I'm standing on the theater stage, I'm like, you put these stools here, I'm like, I'll stand right here, bro. So that movement, to me, was different.
You do a lot of facial expressions that really sell punchlines for you. Now the people who don't get to see you behind it miss out on half of the power of the punchlines.
No, you're totally right. It stays in your, some part of it's gonna mess with your head a little bit.
I don't know how he did it, bro, but Vicious Circle is
of
kind
course.
Perfect. And he played the round.
He was the perfect comic. Perfect.
Yeah, he had that like crouch, and he just the way he moved his body. I don't know.
I'm thinking of Kevin Hart. That was all huge arena.
That was just Kevin being greedy. He was like, wait, this is about another couple $100,000. We gonna make it round.
Yeah. What were some of your biggest influences?
Marlon's Family.
You know what's funny? My family, like, for me, it was like a gift and a curse. That's why, I mean, we all love Richard Pryor. We love all of us. Eddie was like a friend. We love Eddie. We love all the greats, Fred Fox and, George Carlin. But my family, watching my brothers, I grew up in a house with my favorite comedians. My brother Keenan, my brother Damon. Damon was a beast. I used to go with Damon
all-timer
to the Comedy Store and watch him come up with like Handyman, and I'm watching him just play and create. Me and Sean were like 8 and 9 years old, and then my brother Sean started doing it, and Kim started doing it, and then it was my turn. I was like, in comedy, you telling stories about things that happened to you when you grew up. By the time I came along, there was 5 other niggas telling those stories. I had nothing else to say, and then I realized in comedy, it's about your point of view. It's not about, like, everybody's gonna have a sex joke. Everybody have a joke about gender or sexuality, but it's your take on that makes it important and makes you an individual. And so that was a gift and a curse for me, and I'm glad I started doing comedy because I realized I have my own voice.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like Keenan was a major. Keenan Robert Townsend.
Yes.
Especially because like as a black creatives, they were just doing things that we hadn't seen before. Like Keenan, you're getting your real first like black lampooning. Like lampoon style movies that are making fun of black culture that we get to like roll with and laugh at our little stuff. And it was very nuanced in this way that you knew he didn't care if anyone else got it but us. And that was like the first time I really started to tap in with comedy and get like really honed in and start to learn who people were were and like wanted to know who the actors were, and then found their stand-up, found Damon's stand-up. You know, it just fed and fed and fed and fed the thing.
We were talking about In Living Color and Eddie Murphy and like Robin Harris and
Robin Harris,
Monster.
Yeah.
And watching those guys, Martin Lawrence. Bring the Pain came out when I was in high school, which I was like, this is unbelievable. And then like a couple of years later, Bigger and Blacker, and I was like, how could you do this that quickly? Like, and then, you know, like, and then I got kind of like obsessed with that. And then I was a huge like Dave Attell fan. Like I was,
Oh
you know,
my God. I
watching him just do, like, he became like the quintessential just club comic. And so like when I started to do spots, I mean, didn't realize how much of like an impression I was doing. I was wearing his hat and his jacket, and I was like, huh. I was doing like his sounds, and I was like, oh. Then I did a weekend with him. He was like, could you stop doing my cadence? Yeah, like, I didn't realize I was doing it, you know? But like, that's because like you think you're like, oh, this is what I want to do,
right.
like him, and then you kind of like keep doing it, and you're like, oh, I can't do it like him.
My overall comedic influences were like Adam Sandler, Jim Carrey. Like those are who I really grew up watching when I was a kid. And then around 13, 14, when I discovered stand-up, that was at like the peak of the Chappelle Show and Dane Cook stardom. I love people who can put their own unique spin on maybe an edgy perspective and like really articulate the way they feel about it and make an entire room full of people laugh.
People in entertainment still see stand-up as like the lowest rung, like we're fucking circus jugglers. There's a whole bunch of actresses that like, you know, Sam could do their role, but like they can't do what she does. This is a great step, you know, the fact that they're actually gonna consider.
This is a art form that I don't think is appreciated enough. A great stand-up comedian is not just a great stand-up comedian. It's doing stand-up teaches you how to be a writer, how to be a producer, how to be a star, and how to be a director every night. Some of our greatest writers, Gary Marshall, came from stand-up comedy.
I think the best comics end up being vulnerable. They're vulnerable people. They're not afraid of it. And so that translates from the stage of stand-up to acting. Meryl Streep would shit her pants if I did do fucking stand-up, okay? Let's be clear.
I see his little ass come in the room, see the keys, and he's like, and I go, no, don't. And he picks them up, and he goes, chase me.
You were talking about, you know, you could be your worst critic. Can you share the story about the time you bombed the hardest?
How many times?
I got booed off stage, bro.
Can you tell me location? Like where?
It was Winnipeg, Canada. And here's the thing, man.
Would
like,
be international.
So I wasn't selling tickets yet. And this thing about when you get into like November, December in the clubs and you're not a ticket seller, comedy clubs, they do Christmas party packages, right? You see a packed club, 300 people in a club. What you don't realize is that there are groups of 60 and 80, as opposed to a regular night where everybody's 2 and 2, like these two know each other. So this is more like kind of mob mentality, right? So when I'm like, hey, shut the fuck up to this guy, it's not just him and his table being like, what's that? It's 80 people that are like, hey man, like, what'd you say? And you're like, yo. And it was a slow, it like slowly devolved where they were like, boo, and you're like, eh. And then they're like, no, really, boo. And then it just grew and grew. And here's this, it was also, they were fundraising. The lady that runs the fundraiser just steps on stage and she's like, I'm sitting here like, it's just a parade of boos, right? Like you can't even hear. And she was like, takes the mic and she was like, can you please give this man the respect to just listen? And they were like, no. Like, and so she handed me the mic back and I was like, holy shit. And they had a hockey team that left at one point. And I was like, I understand why the Jets left. You guys are horrible people. And they were like, ah. Everybody at that club was like, I've never seen anything fucking like that. I was like, yeah, me neither, dude. That's a traumatic experience, yeah.
I've learned that sometimes bombing is fun. Like, it's okay. Like, everybody's desperate for laughs. A bomb to me isn't even about whether I get booed off stage or anything. Did I do what I wanted to do? Every night I get on stage, I want to accomplish something. What did I get out of this set? I don't care if I killed. If I didn't go out there and be truthful, if I didn't go out there and tell these stories about this and this kind of truth, then I feel like I bombed.
But that's when you're in control of the bomb.
It's very different. Like the story that happened to me, that's more like that's chaos. That's like a literal bomb went off.
Are you returning there, by the way, for your next stand-up tour?
I've been back, yeah.
You should film your next special in that spot.
I know, right?
You can bomb in different capacities. Like to me, you can bomb if the show just doesn't go as well as you expect it to go.
Those feel like bombs, right?
Oh, that to me, I sit with for days
Those are the
longer
biggest
than
bombs.
the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
but you know what I would
Yeah,
do?
when you have it in your head and you're like, tonight's the night, baby. And it's like,
But
tonight
to
is
me, it's
not the
always
night.
about the crowd. You have to feel where they're at. I always go, what's today and what time it is it? What show is it? Okay, if it's a Thursday night show and it's one show, these guys are gonna be a little bit tired, but they're gonna have fun. Because these people really love you. They're coming out there. If it's Friday night, first show, they're a
Hate
little
first show
tired.
Friday.
I hate it
Hate
too.
first show Friday.
Second
It
show,
is the worst
they're a
show.
little more, fun.
The first show Friday, they're rushing from work. It's
Yes.
7 or 7:30 or something
Yes.
dumb.
They haven't eaten.
They don't have time to
Yes.
really. They're fighting. They've
Yes.
definitely gotten a fight going there
Yes.
because of that. And now you're just like,
Yeah. Saturday first show is usually the best show. Saturday second show, they're drunk as fuck.
I like a
And
Sunday
Sunday and Thursday are my favorite days.
Sunday's usually the most
Yes.
Sundays are great.
Sundays and
I
Thursdays.
do think though, like your headspace, who you surround yourself with, plays such a big role in things because when you're like, if you're backstage and it's like, there's just like people you don't want in the green room and it puts you in a headspace, you're not even conscious of it. You do carry that on stage. If you're being silly, like usually when you're with like your comic friends that you guys just make each other laugh. That energy, you take that on
my
stage.
God, you'll crush
every time.
If you walk out on that cloud,
What's your like pre-show process? Because for me, people ask like, do you need like the room to yourself? Do you play music? I'm like, no, I want to chill with my friends.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Then you're already
I like it
Yeah.
chill. Yeah, I don't
I like
need
a
much.
hang.
Give me a Runa, put the game on. I don't like doing too much. I don't hype myself. When I was younger, I used to hype myself up. And then I go out and be like, hey, y'all. And I would overshoot the crowd. The crowd would be like, what the fuck is he smoking?
Yeah, it's like too much energy.
Yeah. So now I calm myself down. You gotta jab, feel where they at. Where are they at? First 5 minutes, you just feel them where they at. And then once you grab them, then you can take them anywhere.
Are there any times that you watch other comedians that they tell jokes that may hit a little too close to home?
I think a comedian has every right, he has the First Amendment, to have their own personality and to speak of things the way they want to. They're not supposed to be responsible. Sometimes in comedy, you have to be reckless. I'm as much as a comedian as I am a black man. Dave is a dear friend, I love him to death. I have a trans son, like my daughter is now my son, and I could give him my opinions, but he has every right to feel the way he wants to feel. Now, me as a parent, when I do my special, I have to handle it differently, So, but comedians, you gotta give them the license to be them.
But also, it's like when people are like, is this too much for the LGBTQ community or da-da-da. It's like, who is representing the community? Because it'd be like 3 or 4 people talking and they get to decide what the whole community thinks or feels or is gonna and that's the same with black or anything, you know what I mean? As much as there's people who are like offended by something, there's people who get it and understand the intent and find it funny. So it's like, what does it mean? Because you didn't get it, it shouldn't exist? Or because you're being the loudest about not getting it, it shouldn't exist. So I think
If
that's
it's
also
funny,
part of
if
it.
the majority of
Yeah.
people laugh, if you tell a joke and 4,999 people laugh, and 3 people get up and walk out, that's a damn good joke.
But that's my point. We're touring this stuff. We're not just pulling this stuff out of our ass. You know what I mean? We're touring it. We're going country.
That's why you gotta
country
tour.
to country, state to state.
Yeah.
We're standing up in front of people and we're saying it again and again and again, and people are laughing. Also, if you rip a joke out of its context,
Oh, that's
it's like you don't
nothing
even
like
know what you're critiquing
in
at
print.
that point.
It's the wildest. When you just read, you're like, this is crazy. This is insane.
Write
It's
down
like,
anything I say.
so there's no tone or anything.
I didn't know that when I stepped into this man world, I was gonna have to hold the door for somebody with working arms. I didn't understand that job.
What piece of advice do you guys have for aspiring comics?
Live on a stage. You only fail when you quit trying. There's no such thing as a bad night. There's always something to learn. One day you become masterful. One day you can follow anybody, you can do anything, you can do your own show, you can play any crowd.
I would say start taking antacids now.
Hilarious.
You're gonna eat a lot of buffalo wings. You're gonna drink a lot of alcohol very late. Kick up your tragedy. Start knocking people off now.
Like you just got to do all the shows. I mean, you got to do the laundromat show and the backyard show.
Pizza shop.
Pizza shop.
The bars.
You go to the Mexican show. You go to the gay show. You go to Winnipeg. Get your ass fucking shoot out. And
What's
then
your weirdest show? Like weirdest place you did one?
I did it in a pizza shop, Demori's Pizza, in front of like 3 people eating slices. This is the crazy part. See, I started stand-up late. This is after I had $1 billion of box office. This is after Scary Movie. This is after White Chicks. This is after all that. I decide I'm gonna be a comedian. That's crazy. And I started from scratch. I started in the pizza shops. I started because I was like, I know the journey. And I can't skip a step just because I have box office is one thing. I took my time, I earned my minutes, I did open mics, I did everything I could until I got to the place where I could finally headline.
Over COVID, one of the most uncomfortable shows that I've ever did and continue to do was my friend Paul Elia and I started doing shows in the back of a pickup truck in the back of my apartment complex. And I literally I was renting out my neighbor's parking spots, and we literally picked up like a U-Haul, and then comics would come. Tom did it one time. You would perform in like the bed of a pickup truck. It was the worst possible scenario for comedy, but we had no other way to get stage time at the time.
We didn't care. Like
No,
I did the punchline in Philly, but it wasn't indoors. It was outdoors, underneath a bridge. It was raining, and I'm sitting there telling jokes, and they're like speed racing above me on the punchlines, like. But I just don't care. I was so depressed during COVID. Hearing the laughs saved my life.
Yeah. It's funny how desperate we were
just
to get up and practice.
We could not stay in.
Well, comedy is like the only art form and skill set that you can learn by live performance. You can only get better at it by doing it live. Like an instrument, you can go in your room for 6 months and learn how to play guitar and come out of it knowing how to play the instrument. You can't do that.
No,
you have to go do it.
Even if you're by yourself up there, feeling bad about yourself, there's something about that exposure of the stage and the vulnerability. It's like you need it to process.
I really like to write live. I don't like to go home and write my jokes. I like to be on a stage and in that moment, instinctively go, well, this is funny, and throw it out there and see, because it's working. To me, it's about when you get to TV, you get to movies, and you got to pitch on the spot. Now you're used to a paying audience, like make me laugh, and so right then and there, when you get network notes, studio notes, here's the fix. This is how you make it funny. You can't do this. How about we do that? Then you become creative solution guy. And I just feel like writing in front of the audience is the best thing to me. It's the best rush.
Yeah, their reaction.
That and crack.
Yeah.